of Adam, Eve, and the devilish snake in the Garden of Eden. This original sin, however, the genetic manipulation, repeatedly let the obsession for fighting and evil to surface from time immemorial, almost becoming evil itself. Yet, in fact, this entire matter is based upon the manipulation of single DNA gene that can be rectified, if only our geneticists were to finally discover it. This genetic manipulation, a characteristic for all living human beings on Earth by way of its inevitable, hereditary transmission, can be reversed, and therefore by doing so, man can finally escape his evil demeanor, which was imposed upon him by way of genetic manipulation. Although science has not yet sufficiently advanced in this field, scientists are nonetheless on the correct path. For this reason alone there is ample justification today for continued progress in genetic research and genetic manipulation, despite objections by those who lack understanding, and others who vehemently reject these concepts and preach idiotic, religious nonsense against things they can neither prevent nor impede. Terrestrial man merely has to reverse the former specific genetic manipulation that compels him to resort to bloodshed and murder, bloodthirstiness, hatred, greed, addiction and all other inhumanities. Still, genetic manipulation of the fighting capabilities in the creation-given creational law and directive sense must not be reversed, since the capability to fight is essential for man's continued existence and evolution. Consequently, the same event must not occur that previously occurred with the creator overlords, who robbed themselves of this fighting capability and lost all of their strength to fight through manipulation of their own genes. For this reason, they were no longer able to defend themselves against any aggressors who attacked them, and this, in turn, resulted in their monstrous concept of manipulating human beings so they would become fighting machines through genetic alterations, which, ultimately, precipitated new sets of problems. When the human beings who were genetically altered into fighting machines by the creator overlords are studied, evidence shows that they procreated, or rather bred specifically for this purpose, as they were perfectly normal, indeed, even highly evolved human beings. But they were rudimentarily altered physically through the manipulation of their genes. Prior physical traits reappeared and made these people, among other things, extremely resistant to environmental influences, and they displayed a certain barbarity. Throughout all of these genetic alterations, however, the proponents neglected to manipulate the genetic factor responsible for cognizance, memory, comprehension and compliance with the creational natural laws and directives, everything that is balanced and good. This omission was completely intentional, for research had shown that this particular omission would provide a form of security against the genetically manipulated people's complete degeneration. The omission would always allow a degree of humanness to surface and influence mankind's lives, actions and other factors, and thus provide some guarantee for the creator overlords that genetically manipulated individuals would not become viciously assaultive against them. These specific desires were not fulfilled, though, except for the fact that the genetically altered individuals did not become totally dehumanized or completely, utterly degenerated. From the earliest times, therefore, the prevailing factor of stability or goodness, respectively, always penetrated the genetically altered people's consciousness. Because of this factor over the past millions of years, viciousness has increasingly lost its significance, although it remains quite evident, particularly within certain rulers, criminals, despots and others. Unfortunately, no one was previously aware that through the genetic manipulation, and the naturally existing factor of stability and goodness in man, a conflict or at least a feeling of being torn between opposing emotions would arise. This holds true even today with many human beings. As a result of these genetic manipulations, and from earliest times, man has fought these inner conflicts of good and evil, where evil frequently is the winner. Nonetheless, increasing numbers of humans combat their way to goodness by conquering the damage done by the genetic manipulation and their wicked legacy, that is, the evil or original sin. Unfortunately, frequent excesses occur that are based upon degeneration and pseudo-humanism, because humans are unable to find the appropriate paths and cling to false ideals that frequently originated from religious sectarian idiocy. Few other details are needed to explain the number of diverse human skin tones on Earth. From our previous explanations, it should now be apparent that various human races and their skin colors originated throughout the most diverse planetary systems of our galaxy, the Milky Way. The regions of Sirius, however, played a specific role too, at least with respect to the actual Yo-Yo origin, before the old Lyrians came to Earth, where they later merged with terrestrial human beings. Numerous distant descendants from those early days inhabit this planet today. One more explanatory remark regarding the original genetic manipulators: in reality they were the benefactors of the genetically altered people, hence they were their creator overlords. When the time came to eventually kill or merely exile the genetically altered individuals, they, the benefactors, split into two sides. Subsequently, the two divisions fought each other with harsh verbal assaults and accusations until other intelligent beings from the Sirius regions intervened. They were joined by the group who wanted to kill the genetically altered people. The true benefactors, those opposed to the killing, were able to rescue a great many genetically manipulated beings whom they had divided into several groups in spite of the many countermeasures of those who wanted to kill. As was previously explained, two groups of peoples settled on the other side of the galaxy, while the remainder of the peoples found new homes in the Sol system on Mars and Malona. Subsequently, several thousand degenerate, genetically altered individuals were deported to Earth. The benefactors knew even then that the people shipped there could not remain in this solar system forever, but that sometime later they would have to depart for other destinations. The benefactors were fully aware that this remote system's sun was a waning star even then, and it was specifically selected since the Sirius intelligences and the creator overlords, who were willing to kill the refugees, did not suspect that this region with its dying sun would be a candidate for new settlements of the degenerates and God's workers, as they were called by the creator overlords. For this reason, the benefactors placed vast distances between the genetically manipulated people's home planets in the Sirius regions and the Sol system, as well as the distant system beyond the galaxy, so as to protect those living on them from those who threatened to kill and eliminate them. The selected hideaways were chosen therefore for their extreme remoteness and their position at the fringe of the galaxy. In addition to having a dying sun, another determining facet also was that living conditions on Sol planets and planets within the system on the other side of the galaxy were very inhospitable, since the breathable air on each of the newly settled planets did not match the original air composition on the home planets. Even on Earth today this is applicable, for its air composition fails to measure up to human respiratory requirements. The dying sun, inadequate living conditions and poor air in the Sol system and beyond the galaxy were therefore reason enough for seeking hideouts here from the pursuers. The genetically altered human beings have struggled to survive ever since their arrival in the Sol system so remote from Sirius, its planets and intelligences. The newcomers propagated offspring and ceaselessly evolved as terrestrials. Soon they will have developed the capability to embark into the universe's vastness and to their yo-yo points of origin. These actions contradict the unjustifiable claims of terrestrial scientists who contend that man on Earth, in his current form, is the yo product of Earth, let alone Charles Darwin's stupid primitive false premise that man descended from apes. There do exist, however, some purely terrestrially created human beings on Earth, but they display their own evolutionary lineage, which is independent from the apes, while the apes descended from the original, respectively earliest, human beings. Yet, even these purely Earth-created individuals are saddled with the genetic legacy of the so-called original sin, if one can call it that. The same applies also to those many humans propagated in former times by old Lyrians and Plejarens who then died on Earth. Every extraterrestrial, absolutely each and every one, who ever lived and died on Earth never again returned to his home world. their spirit forms passed into the terrestrial realms of the beyond, and they have since incarnated into new human bodies. Because these individuals were born on Earth, they too sustained the damage of the previous genetic alterations by the creator overlords from Sirius. This entire situation transpired because the genetically manipulated and the purely terrestrial human beings energetically propagated offspring with each other, and as a result the degenerate legacy unrelentingly spread throughout planet Earth's entire humankind. The genetic manipulations do not imply that terrestrial man is a born-killing machine, but signify only that he is a combative life form capable of killing when required to do so, or when events trigger his loss of control or outbursts, etc. Such actions may also lead to degeneration, but, generally, they only occur when the two factors consciousness and psyche, hence the person's world of thoughts and feelings, are afflicted or briefly overburdened, whereupon they prompt the act committed in the heat of passion. Therefore, the evil brought about, or rather fostered, by the genetic manipulation, is not an intrinsic, compulsive inborn lust to murder. In truth, the genetic manipulation was only created as a controllable factor enabling man to subdue the evil implanted in him, and to make it slowly vanish as he walks along his natural, evolutionary path. This takes an incredibly long time, however, and the reversal of the gene manipulation is an absolutely suitable solution therefore. Clearly, there truly exist no born murderers, and this fact must be stated explicitly. Such malevolent predispositions, degenerations, or individual and mass actions result from either injuries of a psychic conceptual emotional nature, through some sort of disorder of the consciousness, or by explosive rages. In case of disorder of the psyche or consciousness, organic injuries of the brain can play an important part. All of this is the result only of the degeneration of the gene that was accordingly manipulated, whereby evil, the purely negative, forever forces itself into the foreground. For this reason additional items also come into play, such as man's savagery and blood frenzy during revolutions and wars, at times when he discovers the ease of killing and then overcomes the killing barrier. Such a barrier normally will remain forever present in man, despite his genetic manipulation, unless circumvented by disease or explosive rage. Therefore, there is no such thing that man is born evil in the sense that he or she is totally evil from birth onward, as some people enjoy claiming, those who wish only to see evil and total negativity. Man, of course, was provided with both the negative and the positive from the very beginning of his existence, but not to the point where he is only negative or only positive. Ultimately, an equilibrium is established that truly provides man with the capability and stability of conquering every inflicting injury and all forms of external influences. Both negative and positive factors, when combined with and applied to the appropriate form, result in one grand total which turns the human life form into an extremely hardy living entity that possesses the required abilities and is a born fighter for the creational natural laws and directives without excessiveness. The creator overlords, who originally were human beings with the same characteristics as man, however, insanely eliminated this gene from within themselves. In the process they lost all their own combativeness and robustness. They modified their entire thinking process and actions accordingly, and this resulted in their complete decadence. Consequently, they were defenseless and were subjugated when aggressors attacked them. As a result, they secretly developed this breed of fighters whom they genetically manipulated, and covertly new races were propagated having an array of diverse skin colors. These fighters served as pawns against the aggressors and were victorious. Thus, the creator overlords are to blame for their own deterioration. In their distress they procreated a new breed of humans who actually possessed all the nature-given prerequisites once again and, hence, they were capable of fighting and living. This proved to be insufficient for the creator overlords, though, and they decided to conduct additional genetic manipulations to make the new peoples even more aggressive than their natural tendencies allowed. To some extent, the creators merely amplified certain factors through genetic manipulation, whereby the manipulation